Hi guys, I'm Al and I'm in my board game era. And we are here today to talk about my top 10 favorite games of 2024. Now, last year, I thought that I would do a top 20 list and I released my 20 to 11 and then never released my 10 to 1 list. Not sure what happened there, but I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense this year. I know you were all at the edge of your seat and you just couldn't believe that I didn't release it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to compare what I had last year to this year, and we're just going to do 10 for 2024. And then we'll see what happens in 2025. Let's start with our top 10 from 2023 and 2024. So 2023 was Horrified. Beautiful co-op game about monsters invading a town and you have to stop them. And not unalive them, but just maybe turn the tides, they become nice again, or you just stop their nefarious plans. It's really easygoing, light, and an amazing co-op game. I've talked about it once before on the channel and can't say enough good things about it. So that was my number 10 last year. This year, my number 10 is Terraforming Mars Aries Edition. Now, this one dropped a bit from last year's list to this year's list, as we'll see and when we get along here. It is a game about terraforming Mars. Shocking. I know. You never would have guessed it from the title. But yes, that's what you do. It is a version of the original Terraforming Mars, but there are a little bit different nuances to turn taking, I believe. And I say believe because I haven't actually played the original Terraforming Mars. We went straight to the Aries expedition, and it is amazing. Love, love, love Aries expedition. Highly recommend. Basically what you do on your turn is you choose the phase that you want to have happen. So there's 5 phases, which include getting more cards to your hand, gaining income from the engine that you've built. You can play out cards from your hand, and you can activate the cards that you have in your little engine tableau. And when you're doing that, you are gaining points, and you're also terraforming Mars by increasing the oxygen and the heat and allowing for water to develop on the planet. Not sure how that happens, but it happens when you do the things you need to do. So interesting of a concept to think that you can go and have this whole experience on a different planet while playing a board game. I mean, these designers, I don't know where they get these creative ideas, but I love it, and I want them to keep coming. So that was my number 10, Terraforming Mars. Okay, so number 9 from 2023 was Heat, Pedal to the Metal. Heat, Pedal to the Metal is a racing game with card hand management. You have to decide how many cards you're going to place out on your turn, and you have to mitigate the heat that builds up in your engine. How do you do that? Well, by playing cards, by reducing your speed. If you come around a corner too fast, you spin out. It's crazy. I love when games take concepts from real life and are able to apply them to the gameplay for the theme, and it makes sense in how you're playing the game. If you're coming around the corner too fast and you've played too many cards, it makes sense that you're going to spin out because you have to gauge those things. You have to plan ahead for your moves and for when you're driving a race car, I would assume. Makes sense. It's a great game. It is a 1 to 6 player game, and it is a big game in a big box, and that is not because the game is hard, but there's so many components that come with just the base game. Not only there's 6 players, which is huge for a game of that level of play. But there's also another board that's double-sided. The main board's double-sided as well. And then there's all these different modules that you can add into the game that add all new layers and levels to the game. So you can spice it up a little bit and add some rain or some sleet, or you have to change tires or something. Amazing. Amazing. So for 2024, my number 9 is Baseball Highlights 2045, which is always a mouthful to say and hard to remember the numbers, but 2045. So Baseball Highlights is a game where you are playing 1v1. They say you can play a 4-player game, but really you're just playing 1v1 and 1v1. So I'm going to stick with it's a 1v1 player game. And you play cards from your hand, and you basically have to try to stop your opponent from getting hits by playing out cards that have defense and offensive moves on them. So you're playing your hands to get your meeples around your board, and your opponent is playing theirs to try and get around their board and score runs. Now, this game has tons of city team expansions. There's even a Canadian one that I have yet to track down, but it's on my list. And we just backed a Kickstarter. Well, not just. We are expecting the Kickstarter to arrive any moment for an addition to this game, which we are so pumped about. I believe there is a bigger box for all of the expansion components and some new additions to the game. Cannot wait. I'm not a huge sports gal. It's just not really my thing, but I do like baseball. My husband loves baseball, and I initially bought this game for him. And when I played it, I was like, oh, do I love baseball now too because of this game? Probably. It is so good. You do not need to know how to play baseball. You don't ever have to pick up a ball in your life if you want to play this game. A general understanding of that baseball means you have to run from one base to another will help for sure. But to play this actual game, you do not need any sort of base knowledge of baseball, which, perfect. Thank you very much for doing that. And that was my number 9 for 2024. Okay, number 8 for 2023 was Viticulture. Such a good game. And my number 8 for 2024 is The White Castle. So, Viticulture, beautiful game about growing a vineyard and making wine. You need to fulfill orders, you need to harvest your grapes, and it is all done in a beautiful map of your vineyard. This game is very thematic in that you go through the different seasons of planting, harvesting, making wine, then you age the wine, and you hopefully eventually get enough wine in your cellars to sell to the customers while maintaining your vineyard. So you have to do tours to gain some money. You have to build up your buildings that you house the wine in and the different infrastructure around your vineyard that facilitates growing the vines and continuing the production of your vineyard. Love, 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 love. Again, the theme and the gameplay match so well. It is an excellent game, and that's why it was on my number 8 list for 2023. Still on my list of loves, just has scooted down a little bit for 2024. So for 2024, The White Castle has hit number 8. And this game is a quirky little game where you have 9 turns. And that's why I say quirky, because who gives 9 turns in a game and expects people to do all the things they want to do? Well, The White Castle did it, and they did it very well, because this game is so good. So you are choosing dice to place on the board to take the actions in those locations. You have to be strategic about it because you need certain resources to facilitate other turns and other things and actions you want to do. So you have to maximize your turns in a combo-like fashion. And when those combos hit, you feel like you have just invented sliced bread, because it hits different and it's great. we just got the expansion for Christmas, and it is going to add 3 more moves to your game. Very excited about this because I need at least 3 more moves. At the end of the game, I'm always like, oh, if I could have just had a few more moves, I totally could have done all the things I wanted to do. So with the expansion, the matcha expansion, it will add another section to the board, which adds more dice and more areas to place those dice out. So we'll see how that goes. But that is my number 8. Okay, so number 7 for 2023 was Terraforming Mars, the Aries expedition, which we've already talked about. And then for 2024, it is Wingspan. And Wingspan is a lovely bird watching extravaganza in the form of a board game. You are bird enthusiasts and you collect birds and you place them out into their habitats that they want to go into. And to do that, you have to gain resources such as eggs or food to feed them and give them so that they will go into their habitat structures. And you have to decide which birds you're going to play out to maximize the points that you get at the end of the game. So each round has a different round goal. There are also personal goals that you have that you can add more to, which I love when a game does that, when it gives you additional chances to get more points for the end of the game and you're not limited to that one objective card. Ooh, that's a good game right there when it does that. This game was a game we got during the pandemic. And originally my husband was like, I'm sorry, you want us to play a game about birds? I said, yeah, I think it's going to be really great. And I'm really excited to play the bird game, which is what we affectionately call Wingspan, the bird game. It is one we've introduced to a few people that, again, are skeptical because it's about birds. They're like, how interesting can it be? And then by the end of the game, they're like, oh, I get it. I get it now. And my son gets lost in the birds and the art because they're fantastic. And then there's a little bit of blurb about the birds on the cards. So you get to learn about where they come from and some interesting facts. Their wingspan, which is one of the objectives that you could get in the game, is you need to get birds with a wingspan of X or Z. Very cool. We have a few expansions for this game, and there's so many out there. There is a 2-player only version that came out not too long ago, and Wingspan in and of itself plays 1 to 5 players, so you could do a solo playthrough of that if you wanted as well. And that is my number 7 pick. Okay, number 6 for 2023 was Wingspan. There is a reason why it's hovering in around that spot, because it is a great game and it deserves to be recognized for its greatness. So that was my 2023 number 6, and my 2024 number 6 is Obsession. Now, if you like Bridgerton, you like old-timey things, you like pretending to host garden parties, and even if you don't like doing any of those things, or those things sound terribly boring to you, have no fear. Obsession is the game to do all those things and also not draw your attention to them, that you have to either know or have any interest in doing those things. But it's just like a fun, neat, relative to the times, in that there's lots of these shows out now about old England and the events that went on during a season in England, where they tried to gain favor of some of the higher elite families by hosting events and gaining their reputation. And in this game, that's specifically what you need to do, is increase your reputation to draw the attention of a wealthy family. And when you're able to do that at certain points during the game, you're able to bring those cards into your hand, and that will give you a little bit more of a benefit because they're a little bit more of a meatier card. So it just enhances your gameplay and allows you to potentially get a few more points for the end of the game over your opponent, and then potentially it flip-flops. You never really know in this game until the very end, and we love it. You have a board in front of you that has meeples you use to help you run these events. Some of them are maids or butlers, and it has this very interesting mechanic where you use a certain number of cards and those meeples to facilitate the needs of the cards and the events that you're hosting. And then those meeples get exhausted, and they're exhausted for another round before they can move back into an area where you can draw from them to be used again. So you have to manage your meeples and you have to manage your hand, because to get your hand back renewed again, you have to take a pass turn, which essentially doesn't give you much in the way of actions. You do gain some income and you're able to get your hand back and reset your board. But you want to maximize the time spent doing these actions, hosting these events, so that you can hopefully get the most reputation and become the family with the highest favor. And I just think you'll be obsessed, as I am, with this game if you try it. So that is my number 6. Okay, number 5 from 2023 was Baseball Highlights 2045, which we already talked about. Love, love, love. And number 5 for 2024 is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. This game is Indiana Jones in a box, and that is one of my favorite movies. Has been since I was very little, and it itches that scratches that itch. That's how that thing goes, for an adventure. So you are an explorer, an archaeologist, and you have to go out to discover new areas on this big, huge map. It is a sprawling map. Very large. It's a very large map. But there's so much on it and so much to see and do, and you're slightly overwhelmed at first, but I don't want you to feel that way, because it will come very quickly. You need to gather resources so you're able to pay the cost to go out and explore these new areas on the board, which open up, yes, new resources and new resources coming in for you, but also awakens some sort of beast, monster, creature that has been guarding these resources. So you have to use some of those resources you've collected along the way to help defeat them. And if you're able to do that, they gain you points at the end of the game. You also have a side board, which involves researching and journaling, and you have to move these 2 different meeples up along this track, again, by spending your resources that you've collected. And it is neat that it is very thematic, in that you have to research before you can journal, because obviously you need to have some sort of concept before you can write it down. So your magnifying glass can never be below your journal in this little track that you're moving up. Your magnifying glass and journal can be on the same level, but that journal can never go above your magnifying glass. Interesting little thematic quirk, which in the scheme of things, it's very small. But I love when they take the time to go and add those little details that just make sense when you think about it. Love it. And that's why it's my number 5. Okay, so 2023's number 4 was Obsession. And we've talked about how wonderful it is. And it is still in that top 5 range because I'm obsessed. What can I say? Obsessed. But 2024's number 4 is Dice Throne. So Dice Throne was a new to us game in 2024. We got it for Christmas. And the end of 2023, but we played it through 2024. And we have the Marvel version of Dice Throne, where you get to play as your favorite Marvel character. And they have an X-Men expansion coming out shortly, I believe. The Kickstarter will fulfill soon. And you are chucking dice. And it's awesome. It's a little bit like Yahtzee in that you roll 5 dice and you look to see what combinations you can make with those dice. You have 3 rolls, including that first one. And on your board in front of you, you have all the different combinations of dice that you can use to attack your opponents. Everybody starts with 50 health points, and you battle back and forth by rolling your dice and playing cards from your hand to bring down the health of your opponent. And yes, your opponent is also a hero, but it's so cool. It's so fun. And it's easy. It's quick to pick up. There's not a lot of reading on the cards. There's not a lot of reading on the board. It is fast paced. And I mean, who doesn't love chucking dice? There's just something about it that just hits home every single time. So there was a recent Kickstarter for this game as well that brought out and it wasn't a Halloween theme, but the characters are, I'm going to say Halloweeny. They're a little Halloweeny. And I love a good Halloween theme. They got me with the theme. So back to that Kickstarter. And there's also an adventure mode for it, which you can play cooperatively. Meaning I think there'll be more dice thrown in our future, and we are just going to have to expand our collection of dice thrown characters. I don't know what to say. It's just going to have to happen because the more we play, the more we love. And I think once this new expansion comes with the co-op version to us, it's going to reinvigorate our love for this game. And that's why it's my number 4. Okay, number 3 for 2023 was Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium is based on the movie IP, which big right now. I think there's also a new board game released, something, A War of Arrakis. So all set in that same world of Dune. And this one you play as different factions from the movie books series. And you play out your cards so that you can take actions on the board, collecting resources, moving up your status with some allegiances, and basically you are trying to be the first person to get to 10 points. 10 points, that doesn't sound too hard. I mean, it's 10 points. It's harder than you think to get points in this game, and you have to kind of be strategic. You have to plan a few moves ahead to get those points and set yourself up to move towards gaining other points after you do that. There is a neat element to this game where you can battle your opponent in a certain area, and throughout the round, you are putting cubes into the center of the board, and you are trying to watch the other players to see how many players they're going to put in to battle against you at the end of the round. And at different times you can maybe take some back depending on the cards that you have, or put more in. And at the end of the round you decide whether you want to add to that or take back depending on your cards. And then the player with the most hats in the ring, most battlers in the barn, most meeples in the box, the most of their players' colors, the most of their players' chips, people, and the player with the most of their player color in the ring at the end of that round will win the battle, which adds to points, and it decreases the amount of battling that you and your opponents can do in the future. It is very cool and very thematic in the search for spice on the planet. Water is very limited. Oh, it's a good game. But that was 2023. 2024's number 3 is Too Many Bones. Too many bones. There are way too many bones, and I am here for it. So Too Many Bones is a boss battler where you play as a character with asymmetric abilities, and you are training your character to be able to defeat these baddies that you run into along your adventure. Each time you play, you choose a big bad that you're going to go up against at the end of your adventure. And you have so many days in the game to reach that big bad and defeat him. If you are able to defeat other elements of badness along the way, you gain training points, which allow you to add more dice to your tableau and build your character's strength so that once you reach that bad at the end, you're able to go in just guns a-blazing. So you take dice based on how many you're able to roll on your turn. You roll those dice to see if you're able to attack or defend or do some really cool actions based on your character. So one of them, Boomer. I think we can all guess what she does. She makes the big booms and she's very cool. She's able to throw bombs from far away so she doesn't have to be in the action. Whereas a new character I acquired, Nugget, is a melee and a range, so she can be close and far away, depending on the type of weapon she's going to use for that round. So she has her longsword. Obviously, she has to be closer to the baddies to be able to make those hits. I love this game so much, and I am so excited to explore new characters this year and see if it creeps up on my list for 2025. But for now, it is number 3 on my list for 2024. Number 2 for 2023 is Arnak. Talked about it, love it. Yeah, it's dropped a little bit, but still a great game. Still a great game. But number 2 for 2024 is Villainous. I love Villainous so much, and I wish this game could be played at one player because I would be rocking Villainous all the time. It is a game where you get to play as your favorite Disney villain. Yes, please. It is a very thematic game where you are trying to achieve the objectives of that villain from the movie. So those movies that you grew up watching, you get to be the bad guy, which when you're watching them as a little person, you're like, no, I don't want to be the bad guy. I want to be the good guy. But when you get older and you're like, oh, you know, it's a little bit fun to be the baddie. Not gonna lie. Anyways, you get to move your meeple into different areas of your board to do the actions at those locations. You gain money to pay for the cards that you want to play out. You play out allies that help you along your way to achieving your goals. And the other players can stop you from achieving your goals by bringing heroes into your realm, which slow you down. And you have to either get them out by battling them, or you just leave them there and you ignore them and you hope you don't get slowed down too much by them. This is a great game. We have several expansions. And I say expansions loosely because each box of villainous characters that you purchase can be played alone. They don't need a base game. It has a base game or original game, and there are a few more characters in that, but you do not need that to play any of the boxes that you purchase after that. The only exception I will say is Oogie Boogie, which I believe only has one character in it. All the other boxes have multiple characters in them, so you are able to play against opponents in those boxes. So I could not pick a favorite character at this point. I've loved them all. Oh shoot. I'm just remembering now that I missed a game on my haul because it is behind me. I put it away. It's Villainous. It is Disney Villas. It is the Sugar and Spice expansion that has King Candy and Shira. No. Shere Khan from the Jungle Book. Amazing. Love. And that is my number 2. Okay. And 2023 and 2024 have a crossover because it is my favorite game ever, and that is Final Girl. And if you follow along the channel, you know, I play that game a lot, and there'll be more of that in 2025. However, let's talk about it right now in this video. It is, again, so thematic, such a cool concept. You are playing as the final girl in a horror movie. And we all know the classic horror movies has that one last girl whose responsibility it is to take out that horrible horror figure, and she either gets it at the end or he gets it at the end. But what happens pretty much 100% of the time in those movies is there is one big final scene where somebody looks like they are down and out for the count, and then all of a sudden they come back for that last ditch effort to defeat the other, and whether it's the bad guy or the final girl, that happens. And this game is able to capture that moment perfectly. So you are playing cards out, moving around the board, potentially saving other people that might be there too. Not the goal, but it helps you to develop some skills and get other things to continue on your quest to defeat the bad guy. Now, once you think you've done it, you flip over a token to reveal whether he has more health coming back to him and comes back for that final big breath and showdown. So cool. Also cool is that if you get knocked out of the game, you also get to flip over a final health token to see if you can come back. Amazing. I love that part of the game. I think it is so cool and so smart, and it just adds a cool little extra to the end of the game for me. And I think I've actually come back with extra life maybe twice in all of the times I've played. And it's never when I need it. It's only if I've won and then I flip it over and I'm like, oh, cool. I could have come back this time when I didn't need it with extra health. That's cool. That's cool. As long as he doesn't come back with extra health. That's a real bummer if that happens. Anyways, this game has 2 seasons out right now, and the Kickstarter will be fulfilled soon for season 3. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to play that game and show it to you and see what's next for Final Girl in 2025. I'm very much looking forward to that. So that is my number 1 in 2023 and 24, same Final Girl. And that's it. That's my top 10, kind of top 20. It's top 10 from 2 years, so it's 20 across the board. But that is my list for 2024. And I haven't kept you waiting this time. So I'm heads and tails above last year. And hopefully next year we'll have a full 20 for 2025 of my top games. Hopefully this was enough to get you into your board game era. And if it was, like this video and please subscribe. I'm making thumbnails for you.
I'm doing stuff I'm not trying to get.
Okay, no problem. There's a dueling version or a solo variant to it. Thank you. Please, please. That'll do, pig. That'll do.